There's a little gym in southern Missouri called Eminence. You won't find many shops, hotels, or even people here, but those you will find will all be proud of the pristine natural resources they're surrounded with. Ancient and modern civilizations alike have congregated around the spring-fed rivers. There are even some who believe the springs had healing properties, most notably Dr. Welch, who founded a hospital at the mouth of a cave. Eminence is rich with unique history like this, but this is where my story starts when I visit. We begin our trip by setting up camp at Circle B, named simply for the shape of the grounds. This unique campground is bordered by a Jack's Fork River, one of the several spring-fed rivers that flow in Eminence. The campsite is equipped with plumbing, electricity, even Wi-Fi, and at one point was neighbored by an adjacent bar with pool tables, food, drinks, music, but sadly that's been shut down for a few years now. After our long trip to get to Eminence, we usually cool down for the night by jumping off Button Rock. Once we load up with supplies for our trip, we then drive just off-site of the Round Spring campgrounds. Here you can also sign up for a tour of the Round Spring Cave, and that takes typically 30 to 45 minutes, and it's worth it if you've never been spelunking. But once we're ready to take off from our launch site, we have about a 16-mile float ahead of us. We pack a few drinks and lunch, and we take off. It doesn't take long for us to run into beautiful formations, bright blue pools of fresh water. Facing these ancient formations is humbling to imagine how they were formed and what they've witnessed. The water looks and feels like it's from another planet. I highly recommend witnessing this in person, as no camera can really capture the smells, visuals, or solitude of it all. There's so many gravel bars that make perfect pit stops, but it may take a few trips down the river to find your personal favorites and use your time efficiently. We pretty much have our timing down after a few runs on the current river. Among the many fish, turtles, and birds you'll see, the butterflies here are gorgeous and numerous, and they don't seem to mind people either. And finally, we make it to our personal favorite spot, Twin Rocks, one of the deepest points and most picturesque points on the trip. We've never fully investigated the depths, but this point is well deep enough to jump in without touching the bottom. After a long but rewarding day of floating and avoiding a few hazards here and there, most trips end at Two Rivers, which is where the canoe rental service picks people up and returns them to their campsite. This is also part of the river where Jack's Fork and the Current River converge, hence the name Two Rivers. Another great stop in Eminence is Alley Spring, one of the larger sources of water that feeds the rivers. But in 1893, construction of the mill that we see today had started, and the mill was originally designed to use the force of the flowing water to power their machines into converting wheat into flour. Some machines still sit in the mill, which has been converted into a museum to document the great history at this site. Another great stop is Big Spring, which is Missouri's first state park, one of the top 3 largest springs in the country, and it's a bit of a drive away from Eminence, but is well worth the trip, which I hope the reasons are obvious. According to the National Park Service, the water that emerges here is carried as far as 45 miles through underground passages and caves, and on average outputs 286 million gallons of water a day. This spring later merges into the Current River that we float on. If you decide to visit, have a great time, but remember, the beauty and health of these rivers heavily relies on us, so please plan on keeping your trash inside your canoe or kayak until the end. The people and wildlife of Eminence will be grateful for it. Thank you. Have a great float.